Okay. So far we did a lot of things. We placed the player, we made the player move from left to right, and we made the player stop at the boundary, go only up to a point, uh, and we place the food, the animals, and we made the food go forward automatically the moment game starts, and then we associated the food with the player's position, and we also gave a trigger to shoot the food, the space bar. So only when the player presses space bar, the food is shot, and it is shot from the player's position. And we also gave forward motion to the animals. We first rotated the animals by 180 degrees, and then gave the same move forward script which we gave to the food. We also gave to the animals, and all of them we made them move forward. And at the same time, we converted all of these into prefabs, the food instance and the animals instances into prefabs, so that we can create new instances from these prefabs. So first we gave properties to each of the instances, and then we dragged those instances from the hierarchy panel into the projects panel, and then it asks whether you want to create an original prefab. We said yes. So now the prefabs will also have all the properties which the instances had, and all the upcoming instances will also have these properties. So that's what we did. And we also yeah, so that's what we did. We still did not sorry, yeah, we also randomly we also made we also instantiated animals at randomly at random positions by pressing the S key. So that's what we did so far. Now we will do a few more things. That is, the animals should not we should not keep pressing S key to spawn the animals. It's a game, and it should be unexpected to the player when the animals will come. So the player himself or herself should not create the animals. Then the player will know. So there is no point of surprise. So the animals should spawn automatically at random positions and run towards the player, and the player should shoot them. And when the player shoots them, when the food collides with the animal, both of them should be destroyed, the food as well as the animal. So that is what, these are the two remaining things. That is, instead of pressing the S key, the animals should spawn or instantiate automatically. And second thing, when the food collides with the animals, both of them should be destroyed, the food and the animal. So these two things we will do today. Okay. So in the instance manager script, we were instantiating animals when we press the S key. Okay. And we were instantiating random animals at random positions. So sometimes we don't know which animal will come. Sometimes out of the three animals, first animal may come, or second animal, or third animal, any animal may come randomly, and they can come at random positions when you press the S key. So now we don't want the S key to be pressed, but before that we need to sort of put all this code into a function. So let us create a function called instantiate random animal, and let's move this instantiate statement into this function. Okay, but this instantiate statement is using some variables, right? Like animal index, random dot range, animal index and spawn position, right? These variables are local variables to this update. So it will you will see an error if you try to run it like this. So you have to move these variables as well into this code. Okay, so basically you have to move the entire code, not only this instantiate statement, you just move this entire code into this instantiate random animal function. Okay, and then in update, you call this function instantiate random animal. Okay, so every time it calls this function and runs. Let's test this. Okay, so only when I am pressing S it is working, because I didn't really change the code. I just put the existing code in the new function, that's all. I still did not change. I will change. Okay, so here it is a little confusing that you should keep pressing S and then you should keep pressing spacebar, right? So it will be a very confusing way of playing the game. So let the animals come on their own and you press the spacebar whenever you want to shoot them. Okay, all right. Now what we want to do, we want to spawn the animals automatically at random intervals. Okay, so for that there is a function called invoke repeating. Okay, so what this function does, it repeatedly invokes a function. So whatever function you give, it calls that function repeatedly and at the interval which you want. Okay, update function doesn't run according to your wish. It updates every frame. So you can't decide when update function will run and will not run. So there is another function which is similar to update, but you can specify at what intervals this function should run. Okay, so there are 3 arguments to this function. Which function you want to invoke repeatedly. So that function name, that is instantiate random animal, you should give it as a string. Okay, and second thing, do you want to have a start delay? That is, do you want to start it immediately as soon as the game starts, or you want to start it after say 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and then after 5 seconds you want to call it for every 3 seconds or every 10 seconds or whatever it is. So you can also specify a start delay. Okay, so we can say after first 2 seconds and after every 1.5 every 1.5 seconds you call it. Okay, so let's, now you don't need this line, right, because you're calling it in the invoke repeating function, so you need not call it again in the update function. Okay, okay, so I need to specify float. Let's see. Yeah, fine. So let's, okay, sorry, we should also, now we don't need this S key as the trigger, right? Earlier we had S key as the trigger, now we don't need that because it will call it automatically even if you don't press the S key. Okay, so let's check it. Yeah, you see, now new animals are instantiated on their own. Now I need not press the S key. New animals are instantiated randomly. Different animals are instantiated at different positions at random intervals. I mean, not random exactly, but at every 1.5 seconds you see an animal. Okay, so that's what. Now you can sort of play it like a normal game. You just focus on your motion and pressing the space bar. That's all. Okay, so clear so far? You're not really creating a new code entirely. You're basically, everything is happening here in the instantiate function. Okay, you have put all this code inside another function called instantiate random animal. earlier you called this function in the update function, but in update method it calls it every frame. So I don't want an animal to spawn every frame. Now just imagine if I comment this and if I put this instantiate random animal function here, can you guess what will happen? Yeah, every frame it will create a new animal. So let's see. Just see. So that's what's happening. It's madness. But thankfully, because we also wrote the script for the animals to disappear as soon as they cross the boundary, it is still manageable. But imagine if you don't write that script to destroy the object when it touches the boundary. Within a couple of seconds, your memory and your CPU, everything will hang, right? So the point is, in update function also we are calling that instantiate method repeatedly. In invoke repeating also we are calling that instantiate method repeatedly. The only difference is in update we cannot control how frequently it should be called and at what intervals it should be called. So we are calling it in a separate function called invoke repeating, and we are specifying a start delay of 2 seconds, and after 2 seconds call it for every 1.5 seconds. And now you don't need to press the S key. It will automatically call it and invoke it. So let's remove this. Okay. Yeah, and I shouldn't have removed that. Anyway, so let me write it again. Invoke repeating instantiate random animal, and here the numbers we were giving, we were hard coding the numbers. It's always a good habit to not hard code the numbers, put them in a variable and then specify those variables. So what I'll do, I'll first specify 2 variables here. I'll call start delay, it's float, and again private float spawn interval. Okay, 1.5f. Okay. So I can give those variables here, start delay and spawn interval. Okay. Yeah, so always make it a habit to not hard code, put them in variables and use those variables. So we can just test it one last time. Yeah, they are being created automatically. Okay. Yeah, so now the only thing remaining is for it to detect when the piece of food is touching the animal and then destroy both the food and the animal. Okay, so for that we need to, so this is basically called collision detection. So for that we need to add sort of boxes around both the objects, around the animal as well as the food. So when these boxes touch each other, the program will understand that they are colliding. Okay, because the shape of the animal or the shape of the food, in this case shape of the food is not that complex, it's like a triangle, but shape of the animal is very complex and you can have very complex objects. So it is difficult for the program to understand when 2 objects are touching each other, because they are very complex shapes. It is difficult to exactly understand the outline of an object, to understand all the outline coordinates of an object and then say, okay, only when this enters this particular space within these coordinates it touches. So that's too much of complicated calculations. So simplest thing is just put a box around both these objects minimally, so that that box contains the object. It's not too big box, so that it's just covers all the boundaries of the object, and just check whether these two boxes are touching each other or not. So if they are touching, we understand they are colliding, and that is called collision detection. So we detect that there is a collision. So then we do something. So if there is a collision, what to do? Whether you want to make them fly above, or get destroyed, or only one object to be destroyed, or both the objects to be destroyed, it's up to you. But the point is, you need these boxes. Okay, so for that, you need to add that box around all the objects that are involved in collision detection. So we have 3 animal prefabs and 1 food prefab. If we add them to the prefab itself, then all instances will also have those boxes. So whatever you want to do it for the prefabs. Okay, so select each animal. In fact, you can select all, and first add box collider. So here you have two things, box collider and box collider 2D. You should select box collider, not box collider 2D, because we are dealing with 3D objects, not 2D objects. Okay, so add that. Okay, now if you look at any animal, all of them animal prefab will have box collider, right? And the food prefab will also have box collider. So anytime you want to add a component, same component, to more than one object, just select all the objects and add that component. Okay, but now we want to resize this box for each of the animals, because each of the animal sizes are different. We have to adjust the sizes of each of the boxes according to that animal. So double click on the prefab. Okay, so this is chicken. Now you have to select this one. Okay, just a minute. I don't know why here edit collider option is not being shown properly. Let me remove it and add it again. should work. There is something here. Okay, let's see on this. No, it's not coming here. Let's see. Oh, here it is coming. This is what I was looking for. What about this? Why is it not coming here? That button. Okay. Let's try to do it for this, and then we can convert this into a prefab. That is also possible. So let's see that. So first check each trigger and check edit collider and double click on this. Okay. If you find this view difficult, you can also select this isometric view. That is more easy, that's more flat. Okay, so here you see the small squares, click on that and drag and try to make this box as small as possible. Okay, seems fine from this angle. Top view and x-axis. Okay, so let's once check along all the axes. Yes, fine, fine, fine. Okay. Okay, so now what we will do, we will delete this prefab and we will drag this into prefabs. Yeah, so that should be fine, I hope, I suppose. Okay, similarly for the other two animals as well. Add a box collider and edit it. Click each trigger option, always check that, and edit the collider. You can zoom on the animal. Here for some reason a very small box has come, so we need to actually expand it. Okay, where is it? So let's do it along an axis, that will be much easier. Okay, yeah, seems fine. Yeah. Okay, now let's remove this prefab and convert this into a prefab. Okay, and now the only thing remaining is Fox. So let's edit this. So add box collider to this, check each trigger, edit the actually we should be able to, but I am unable to see this icon. Here you see what I am clicking. You see there is this icon which is coming up, but I am unable to see this for the prefabs. I don't know why. Yesterday I was able to see, but today I don't know why I am unable to see. So that's why I am dragging them itself into the prefab. So this Fox, edit collider, use isometric view, simple. Okay, let's see along different axes. Yeah. Yep, perfect. Now let's delete this prefab and convert this into a prefab. Yeah, let's hope this will work. And for food pizza, I don't know if it will show. It's not showing this, so we have to add collider to the food pizza in the hierarchy panel and check each trigger option and edit it. So where is the food? Yeah, here the boundary is already fine, so we need not change anything. Yes. Okay, so let's just drag it. First delete this and drag this. Yeah. So let's hope this will work. Now we added the colliders. Now we need to check if they have collided or not. Okay. But before that, we need to make one of them a rigid body also. You remember in the first game for the van, for when it goes and hits the obstacle, for them to behave in a to follow the laws of physics, we had to convert one of them into a rigid body. So here we will convert the food piece. We will add rigid body component to the food piece. Okay. So check the food pizza prefab, add component, type rigid body. Again, you will see two options, rigid body and rigid body 2D. You should select rigid body option because we are not in 2D, we are in 3D game. Okay. And whenever you select rigid body, by default, it uses gravity. Okay. So if it uses gravity, when the player throws the food, it will fall down after a point, right? We don't want that. We want the food to be going continuously in a straight line. So you should uncheck gravity. Okay. If you check gravity, it will fall after some time. I will show that as well. But right now, let's uncheck gravity. Now we need to write a new script for detection collision, for collision detection. Okay. So create new script, collision detection. Okay. So here, outside the update function, you need to write a new function called on trigger entered. If you had installed any Unity extension, you will see this autocomplete. When you click on this on trigger enter autocomplete, it will auto complete the function and give you. Okay, so here if you don't have autocomplete, just type this private void on trigger enter collider other. So what it is saying is, when the current object collides with some other object, what to do? When the collision happens, what to do? So that is the trigger. Collision is the trigger. So when the collision happens, whatever you want to do, write that here. Whatever actions you want to perform, write that here. So what do we want to do? We want to destroy the food object and we want to destroy the animal object also. Okay. So since when the food collides with the animal object, that will be the other. Okay. So here all you need to write is destroy game object with small g, and similarly destroy other dot game object. So destroy itself as well as destroy the other object. Okay. So let's see. Okay, it's not destroying. Why? Okay, we have to associate this script with the objects. So we need to associate it with the food prefab. So let's click on this. Let's add component, and collision detection. Okay. So I associated it with the food prefab. Now let's test. Yeah, now they are being destroyed. See? So the moment food touches the animals, it's destroying itself as well as the animals. That's all. Let's increase the speed of the player a bit. The player is too slow. So let's go to player speed, let's say 40. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, much better. Okay. Yeah. All right. So all you had to do was create a script called collision detection and attach it to the food prefab and add this function after the update function. On trigger enter collider other. So you destroy the self game object as well as destroy the other game object. Okay. Now finally the losing condition, since this is a game, we also should say when the player has lost. So whenever an animal crosses the player, passes the player, then the player is lost. If a player misses an animal and the animal goes past the player, then we should say the player has lost. That's quite a simple thing. All we need to do is go to the previous script, one of the previous scripts, that is destroy out of bounds. So here what were we doing? If the food piece crosses the top bound or if the animals cross the lower bound, we were destroying them. In this, all we had to do is when the animals cross the lower bound, it means they are going past the player, right? So here we will just display a message saying game over. Okay. So you just add a line saying game over. Okay, so if they go past the player, we'll just say game over. So that message will be displayed here. Wherever this message is coming, in the same place, that message will be displayed. Okay, so it will not stop the game as such, it will just display that message there. Okay, you see now, game over. That's all. I mean, you can do more, you can stop the game and do many more things, but right now we are just leaving it there, just to say, okay, game is over. That is one way of closing the game. Okay, so that's what we did today. That is, so we, instead of pressing the space bar, we made the animals spawn randomly at specified time intervals on their own. And second thing, we detected collisions of the food object as well as the animals and made both of them disappear the moment they come into contact with each other. How did we do that? We added a component called box collider for both the food prefabs, as well as the animal prefabs. Actually, we can do it directly for the prefabs, but since there was this edit collider button is not showing, I did it for the instances in the hierarchy panel, and now these animals have all the properties we need. So I dragged them and converted them to prefabs. I deleted the old prefabs, I dragged these new instances and converted them to prefabs. Now all the new instances that are going to be created, they will have the same box colliders. So they will have the same boundaries. So when they touch the food, they will be destroyed. Okay, and for food, at least one of these two objects, you add a rigid body component. Okay, otherwise they will not be destroyed. Okay, so collision detection, the box collider will only detect whether collision has happened or not, but for it to act based on that, you need rigid body component. For your action to be executed, you need rigid body component. Okay, and I also told you, I will show you what happens if we check the gravity option. Earlier we unchecked it, but suppose we say use gravity, that is now the food piece will have gravity. So it will fall towards the ground even before it reaches an animal. Okay, so you can see that. You see, it's falling so close. But if I uncheck it, where is it? Okay, I uncheck it. Now it is flying. You see, it's flying too far. So that's the difference. So if you use gravity, it will fall immediately. And then we also added a condition to display game over. Just one small line. So when anything goes past the player, say game over. That's all. Display the message game over and then destroy that object. Okay. One reason why we did not add rigid body component to all the animal prefabs is, right now in this game, all the animals are moving towards the player. They are not touching each other. But just imagine if we make this game more complicated, if the animals are running in different directions and if they happen to hit each other, they should not destroy each other, right? Because that's not the meaning of the game we are playing. Animals should not destroy each other. So even if animals touch each other, they should not destroy each other, which means they should not have rigid body component. Only when the food touches the animals, food and the animal should be destroyed. So food should have rigid body component. So food is the trigger for destruction. Animals, within animals, should not be destroyed. Okay, so that is the reason why we added rigid body only to the food and not the animals. Okay, so that's the game. So lot of things, lot of concepts were introduced. How to handle random values, how to instantiate objects, how to create prefabs, how to add box colliders, how to edit them, how to make, how to trigger an object on a keyboards, key press, and how to make that object associated with another object's position. Lot of things. So lot of concepts are covered. You better revise it before the next class so that you will be able to do the next class assignment. Okay. So let's stop here. Any doubts? No doubts? Okay.